Hey, you guys. Hello. Hi, it's David at Bali and Beyond, and I've taken kind of a different position that we've been playing around with camera angles today. It's funny. So hopefully this works, and yeah, here we are. Good morning. So I'm back reading from The Power of Now, which I still haven't figured out how to make this book look right side up. James says he can't, so all right. And yesterday we read quite a piece, amazing piece actually, in this guy's so good. He is so good. So he has a chapter in this book, Power of Now, entitled "Enlightened Relationships," and which is he talks about. Just going to close a few things in this screen because it's too light, and yeah, there we go. There, how's that better? I think that is. It's got kind of a glare on the side, doesn't it? Okay. Anyway, Power of Now with Eckhart Tolle. I'm really stoked to be reading this. Yesterday was so enlightening. You know, I mean, we've been lied to. We really have. We've been lied to by society. This idea that the answer to our feeling of emptiness or is in the answer is in a relationship, or is in a job, or is in obsessively drinking or drugging or anything. I mean, there's all of those things have amazing moments, but they don't hold, and they eventually turn on us. So it's really interesting, to look at this. And what he's basically saying is that the only answer is in a connection, a conscious connection with self in this moment, and not a self-centered connection, but a connection with the bigger self, the now, the God consciousness, the Christ consciousness. And so we can go through our whole lives actually thinking that it's in accomplishments, it's in the job, it's in parenting. All of those things again are beautiful things, but they don't hold the key to peace of mind. They don't have the long-term value that we want when we're here on the planet. So I'm going to read a little bit more of Eckhart Tolle. This is stuff that actually my teacher taught me a long time ago, and I've been such a slow learner, honestly. So if you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting it, know that you're in good company. Most of us didn't get it for a long time. It just takes a long time for the doors to open, and we realize that it isn't happiness. True happiness isn't where we think it is. It's in anything that we develop outside of us, and not that we shouldn't have a productive life, or not that we shouldn't be in a relationship. I think what we always have to do is look at our motives, our expectations, and if our idea is that somehow we're going to be fed from that thing, that we're going to be, that it's going to open the door to peace of mind. Well, it just doesn't work that way. Anyway, hey Carl, thanks for dropping in. So here we go. I'm going to read. We're on page 153, and 153. And the chapter is called enlightened relationships. Can you guys hear me? I wonder. Hard to tell, isn't it? James is going to see if he can hear me.
We're on page maybe 10. I think it's about 9 to 10. What's the date?
Yeah, that's me. All right. So, and on page 153, and the subtitle here is From Addiction to Enlightened Relationships. So mostly we've been kind of in relationships with an addictive nature, and he explained that already. And so it starts with a question from one of his students: can we change an addictive relationship into a true one? And Eckhart Tolle says yes. Being present and intensifying our presence by taking our attention even more deeply into the now. Whether you're living alone or with a partner, this remains the key. For love to flourish, the light of your presence needs to be strong enough so that you no longer get taken over by the thinker or the pain body, and mistake them for who you are. Hey Greg, thanks for dropping in. To know yourself as the being underneath the thinker, the stillness underneath the mental noise, the love and joy underneath the pain, is freedom, it's salvation, it's enlightenment. To disidentify with the pain body is to bring presence into the pain and thus transmute it. To disidentify from thinking is to be the silent watcher of the thoughts and behavior, especially the repetitive patterns of your mind and the roles played by the ego. If you stop investing it with selfness, the mind loses its compulsive quality, which basically is the compulsion to judge, and so to reset what is, which creates conflict and drama and new pain. In fact, the moment that judgment stops through acceptance of what is, you are free. The moment that judgment stops through acceptance of what is, you are free. Wow. Free of the mind. You have made room for love, for joy, for peace. First, you stop judging yourself. Then you stop judging your partner. The greatest catalyst for change in a relationship is complete acceptance of your partner as he or she is, without needing to judge or change them in any way. Can you imagine? It's so hard. That's such a thing, isn't it? I laugh because, not only have I been guilty of that, but I've been on the other side of it a time or two. And all right. I lost my spot. The greatest catalyst for change in a relationship is complete acceptance of our partner as he or she is, without needing to change or judge them in any way. This immediately takes you beyond ego. All mind games and all addictive clinging are then over. There are no victims and no predators anymore, no accusers or accused. This is also the end of all codependency, of being drawn into somebody else's unconscious pattern and thereby enabling it to continue. You will then either separate in love or move ever more deeply into the now together, into being. Can it be that simple? Yes, it is that simple. Love is a state of being. Your love is not outside, it is deep within you. You can never lose it. It cannot leave you. It is not dependent on some other body, some external form. In the stillness of your presence, you can feel your own formless and timeless reality as the unmanifested life that emanates your physical form. Hey Blair, thanks for dropping in, buddy. Nice to see you. Emanates your physical form. You can then feel the same life deep within every other human and every other creature. Oh my gosh. Your look beyond the veil of form and you look beyond the veil of form and separation. This is a realization of oneness. This is love. What is God? The eternal one life, the eternal one life underneath all the forms of life. What is love? To feel the presence of that one life deep within yourself and within all creatures. To be it. Therefore, all love is the love of God. Wow. So I'm reading Eckhart Tolle, you guys. And I'm quite a ways into the book. I've been reading it a number of days. And we're on the chapter Enlightened Relationships. And I know some of you. It seems like I've got almost all men on here this morning. And I'm sure you're all in enlightened relationships. If not, hang around. It isn't easy, though. This thing that he's talking about, this awakening, this being present, being here in the now, especially in relationship words, it's what a great place to grow, though. He actually earlier, what I read yesterday, he said better to have had 3 relationships in a year than to have sat home doing nothing. More growth will come from the 3 relationships, and so I guess that I probably have done some growing because I've been in a few. Love is not selective, it says, just as the light of the sun is not selective. It does not make one person special. It is not exclusive. Exclusivity is not the love of God, but the love of ego. Wow. However, the intensity with which true love is felt can vary. There may be one person who reflects your love back to you more clearly and more intensely than others. And if that person feels the same toward you, it can be said that you are in a love relationship with him or her. The bond that connects you with that person is the same bond that connects you with the person sitting next to you on a bus, or with a bird, or a tree, or a flower. Only the degree of intensity with which it is felt differs. Nice. Even in the otherwise addictive relationships, there may be moments when something more real shines through, something beyond your mutual addictive needs. These are moments when both your and your partner's mind briefly subside, and the pain body is temporarily in a dormant state. This may sometimes happen during physical intimacy, or when you are both witnessing the miracle of childbirth. Yes. Both witnessing the miracle of childbirth, or the presence of death, or one of you is seriously ill, and anything that renders the mind powerless. When this happens, your being, which is usually buried underneath the mind, becomes revealed, and it is this that makes true communication possible. Nice. True communication is communion, the realization of oneness, which is love. Usually, this is quickly lost again, unless you're able to stay present enough to keep out of the mind and its old patterns. As soon as the mind and the mind identification return, you are no longer yourself, but a mental image of yourself, and you start playing games and roles, and again, to get your ego needs met. You're a human mind again, pretending to be a human being, interacting with another mind, playing a drama called love. Oh, gotta love this guy. Although brief glimpses are possible, love cannot flourish unless you are permanently free of mind identification. Although brief glimpses are possible, love cannot flourish unless you are permanently free of mind identification, and your presence is intense enough to have dissolved the pain body. Or you can at least remain present as the watcher. The pain body cannot then take you over and so become destructive of love. Wow, eh? Next little subtitle here is Relationships as Spiritual Practice. As the egoic mode of consciousness and all the social, political, and economical structures that it created enter the final stage of collapse. Really. As the egoic mode of consciousness and all the social, political, and economic structures that it created enter the final state of collapse, the relationships between men and women reflect the deep state of crisis in which humanity now finds itself. As humans have become increasingly identified with their mind, most relationships are not rooted in being, and so turn into a source of pain and become dominated by problems and conflict. Millions, it says, are now living alone or as single parents, unable to establish an intimate relationship or unwilling to repeat the insane drama of past relationships. Others go from one relationship to another, from one pleasure and pain cycle to another, in search of the elusive goal of fulfillment, through union with the opposite energy polarity. Still others compromise and continue to be together in a dysfunctional relationship in which negativity prevails for the sake of the children or security, through force of habit, fear of being alone, or some other mutually beneficial arrangement, or even through the conscious addiction to the excitement of emotional drama and pain. Wow. However, every crisis represents not only danger, but also opportunity. If relationships energize and magnify egoic mind patterns and activate the mind-body as they do at this time, why not accept the fact rather than try to escape from it? Why not cooperate with it instead of avoiding relationships or continuing to pursue the phantom of an ideal partner as the answer to your problems or a means of feeling fulfilled? The opportunity that is concealed within every crisis does not manifest until all the facts of any given situation are acknowledged and fully accepted. Nice, eh? As long as you can deny them, as long as you can try to escape from them or wish that things were different, the window of opportunity does not open up, and you remain trapped inside that situation, which will remain the same or deteriorate further. Wow. With the acknowledgement and acceptance of the facts also comes a degree of freedom from them. For example, when you know there is disharmony and you hold the knowing through you hold that knowing, though your knowing a new factor has come in. Through your knowing, a new factor has come in, and the disharmony cannot remain unchanged. When you know you are not at peace, your knowing creates a still space that surrounds your non-peace in a loving and tender embrace, and then transmutes your non-peace into peace. As far as inner transformation is concerned, there's nothing you can do about it. You cannot transform yourself, and you certainly cannot transform your partner to anybody else. All you can do is create a space for transformation to happen, for peace and love to enter. Cool, eh? So, whenever your relationship is not working, whenever it brings out that madness in you and in your partner, be glad. What was unconscious is being brought up to the light. It is an opportunity for salvation. Every moment, hold the knowing of that moment, particularly of your inner state. If there is anger, know that there is anger. If there is jealousy, defensiveness, the urge to argue, the need to be right, the inner child demanding love and attention, or emotional pain of any kind, whatever it is, know the reality of that moment and hold the knowing. So be present. Be here now. The relationship then becomes your sadhana, 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 your spiritual practice. If you observe unconscious behavior in your partner, hold it in the loving embrace of your knowing so that you won't react. Unconsciousness and knowing cannot coexist for long. Even if the knowing is only in the other person and not in the one who is acting out. Even if the knowing is only in the other person and not in the one who is acting out the unconsciousness. Okay. The energy form that lies behind hostility and attack finds the presence of love absolutely intolerable. If you react at all to your partner's unconsciousness, you become unconscious yourself. But if you then remember to know your reaction, nothing is lost. Humanity is under great pressure to evolve because it is our only chance of survival as a race. Hey Ryan, Mr. Flanor, thanks for dropping in, buddy. Reading Eckhart Tolle. Been reading it, every day for quite a while here, almost every day. It's The Power of Now. It's an older book, and oh my gosh, I read it years ago, maybe 20 years ago, and somehow it's really changed. Imagine that. And he's got a chapter called Enlightened Relationships, and that's the chapter we're in right now. So, Ryan, I know you'd be interested in that. Okay. Humanity is under great pressure to evolve because our only chance of survival is our only chance of survival as a race. This will affect every aspect of your life and close relationships in particular. Never before have relationships been as problematic and conflict-ridden as they are now. As you may have noticed, they are not here to make you happy or fulfilled. If you continue to pursue the goal of salvation through a relationship, you will be disillusioned again and again. But if you accept that the relationship is here to make you conscious instead of happy, then the relationship will offer you salvation, and you will be aligning yourself with a higher consciousness that wants to be born into this world. For those who hold on to the old patterns, there will be increasing pain, violence, confusion, and madness. The madness of it. I was thinking that, in my opinion, and I guess this is from my own experience, it's got nothing to do with maybe your truth, but in my opinion, most of us don't want to do the work. We don't want to look after ourselves. We don't want to be conscious. We're like so many of us that I believe are kind of like children. We don't want to meditate. We don't want to exercise. We don't want to be conscious, be present, be here now. That's my experience that we're often looking for the easier, softer way. We're looking for a hack, some way to get into that peace without doing the work. And so I've spent quite a few years encouraging people to meditate and to be more present and I'm starting to say to some folks, maybe it's not going to work for you. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe not this lifetime. Maybe another lifetime. Maybe this is as far as you get. And it's interesting because instead of me always kind of trying to pull people and saying, "Hey, you guys, come on, you know, this is the way, meditate and be conscious and read the masters and get to see yourself, self-actualization, it's and so maybe it's not for everybody, but I think that, the folks that are listening to this have a, if you're interested, that's a good start. Hi, Trevor. Nice to see you. Mr. Thibodeau. Hey, buddy. So, it is and when I say that, I speak of myself too. I mean, sometimes I find myself being a bit lazy, with everything. I don't want to give up sugar. I don't. I've given up drugs and alcohol years ago and let go of them, and what an awakening that has been. But there's many things to on the road to take us out of the game, and how we eat, whether we exercise or not, how we show up at work, how we deal with our fears, come into our consciousness, prayer, gratitude. All the practices that help us to be more here are really the road, and it takes work, discipline. So I encourage you with the discipline. So here we are. We're on page 159 in the chapter called Enlightened Relationships. Imagine that, and we've come into another question. So what he's done through the book is his students have asked questions, or through his experience over the years, there's been many questions asked, and so he writes the question. Here it is, one of them right now. I suppose that it takes two to make a relationship into a spiritual practice, as you suggest. For example, my partner is still acting out his old patterns of jealousy and control. I have pointed this out many times, but he's unable to see it. And Eckhart Tolle responds with, how many people does it take to make your life into a spiritual practice? Never mind if your partner will not cooperate. Sanity, consciousness, can only come into this world through you. You do not need to wait for the world to become sane or for somebody else to become conscious before you can become enlightened. You may wait forever. Do not accuse each other of being unconscious. The moment you start to argue, you have identified with the mental position, and are now defending not only that position but also your sense of self. The ego is in charge. You have become unconscious. You become unconscious. At times, it may be appropriate to point out certain aspects of your partner's behavior. You become unconscious. At times, it may be appropriate to point out certain aspects of your partner's behavior. If you are very alert and very present, you can do so without ego involvement, without blaming or accusing or making the other wrong. I think we have to be compassionate, because no matter where we are, whether we're at work or we're working with somebody in a 12-step program, or we need to be compassionate. It's not easy to see out of the maze of where we're living in the unconscious ego. It's not, and so patience and compassion is so important. The huge example of that is in the story, I believe, the story of Christ, when here he is in that story on the cross, and he says, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He realized that they were all asleep, and it's a pretty big deal. And so sometimes our partners can be that way. We can be that way and don't even know it. That's why I think it's important to be involved with consciousness groups, find people that are, in some ways more committed to it maybe than we are, and that are not afraid to tell us the truth, and that will risk their relationships with us to point out what they see I think those things are really important in our lives if we want to, to live in consciousness, to have mentors, and of course at this time in the world, there's so much information available on this subject. Not just like Eckhart Tolle, but my friend David Hawkins, and has got so much great stuff. Even, I'm listening to Gary V, and Gary says some beautiful things that I think are quite conscious. And, I went to hear Russell Brand speak the other night, and Russell is so committed to, spiritual awakening. So there's lots of opportunity for us to get plugged in. We're not living on a desert island. It's all available on the internet and in groups, in meetings, for, through sponsorship, both ways. Helping others is just such a key to growth. How many people are we committed to on a daily basis? Not just a weekend retreat with where we're giving the teaching, but, are we doing it every week? Are we doing it every day? How many, if you're in a 12-step world, how many sponsees do you have that you're actually working with every day? That's the wind beneath our wings, working with others, through consciousness, to awakening. And anyway, that's my thing. Okay, here we go. I want to finish a couple more pages. When our partner behaves unconsciously, relinquish all judgment. Judgment is either to confuse someone's unconscious behavior with who they are, or to project your own unconsciousness onto another person and mistake that for who they are. To relinquish judgment does not mean that you do not recognize dysfunction and unconsciousness when you see it. It means being the knowing rather than being the reaction and the judge. You will then either be totally free of reaction, or you may react and still be the knowing. The space in which the reaction is watched and allowed to be, you'll still be the knowing. The space in which the reaction is watched and allowed to be. Instead of fighting the darkness, you bring in the light. Instead of reacting to delusion, you see the delusion, yet at the same time look through it. Being the knowing creates a clear space of loving presence that allows all things and all people to be as they are. No greater catalyst for transformation exists. No greater catalyst for transformation exists. We have to work with people, baby. And that's, folks are the way for us to wake up. If you practice this, your partner cannot stay with you and remain unconscious. If you both agree that the relationship will be your spiritual practice, so much the better. It's funny, I have done that, and somehow it's I have done that with partners before, and sometimes we get to a place and it's just, boy, we just don't want to go past that. And I'm sure that happens to me, and I know it's happened to me in a relationship where my partner just did not want to, was holding on to a belief or holding on to a position, and there's no way that she was going to move past that, and that happens, and so what do you do with that? I guess it'd be there in compassion, I guess, but like he says, the partner cannot stay, and remain unconscious. So things do move on their own, and if you both agree that the relationship will be your spiritual practice, so much the better. You can then express your thoughts and feelings to each other as soon as they occur, or as soon as a reaction comes up. So you can actually, unfiltered, be in conversation, and so that you do not create a time gap in which an unexpressed or unacknowledged emotion or grievance can fester and grow. Learn to give expression to what you feel without blaming. Learn to listen to your partner in an open, non-defensive way. Give your partner space for expressing himself or herself. Be present. Accusing, defending, attacking, all those patterns that are designed to strengthen or protect your ego or to get its needs met will then become redundant. Giving space to others and to yourself is vital. Love cannot flourish without it. When you have removed the two factors that are destructive to relationship, then the pain body has been transmuted and you are no longer identified with mind and mental positions. And if your partner has done the same, you will experience the bliss of the flowering of relationship. Instead of mirroring to each other your pain and your unconsciousness, instead of satisfying your mutual addictive ego needs, you will reflect back to each other the love that you feel deep within, the love that comes from the realization of your oneness with all that is. This is the love that has no opposite. Wow, beautiful. Unconditional love. If your partner is still identified with the mind and the pain body while you're already free, this will represent a major challenge. Not to you, but to your partner. This will represent a major challenge. Not to you, but to your partner. It is not easy to live with an enlightened person. Or rather, it is so easy that the ego finds it extremely threatening. Remember that the ego needs problems. It needs conflict, needs enemies to strengthen the sense of separateness in which its identity depends. The unenlightened partner's mind will be deeply frustrated because its fixed positions are not resisted, which means they will become shaky and weak. And there is even the danger that they may collapse altogether, resulting in loss of self. So the ego will be threatened. The pain body is demanding feedback and not getting it. The need for argument and drama and conflict is not being met. But beware, some people who are unresponsive, withdrawn, insensitive, or cut off from their feelings may think and try to convince others that they are enlightened, or at least that there's nothing wrong with them and everything wrong with their partner. Men tend to do that more than women. They may see their female partner as irrational or emotional. Imagine, fellas, have we ever said that? But if you can feel your emotions, you are not far from the radiant inner body just beneath. But if you can feel your emotions, you are not far from the radiant inner body just underneath. If you are mainly in your head, the distance is much greater, and you need to bring consciousness into the emotional body before you can reach the inner body. If there isn't any emanation of love, and joy. Hey, Ron Waterbury, thanks for dropping in, buddy. We're reading The Power of Now, and we're actually in the chapter on enlightened relationships, and pretty cool, very cool. On page 162, if you've got the book, get it out. Just this chapter by itself is a wow. If there isn't an emanation of love and joy, complete presence and openness towards all being, then it is not enlightenment. Another indicator is how a person behaves in different or challenging situations or when things go wrong. If your enlightenment is egoic, self-delusion, then life will soon give you a challenge that will bring out your unconsciousness in whatever form, as fear or anger or defensiveness or judgment or depression, so on, all from the ego. If you're in a relationship, many of your challenges will come through your partner. For example, a woman may be challenged by an unresponsive male partner who lives almost entirely in his head. She will be challenged by his inability to hear her, to give her attention and space to be which is due to his lack of presence. The absence of love in the relationship was usually, which is usually more keenly felt by the woman than a man, will trigger the woman's pain body, and through it, she will attack her partner and blame and criticize and make wrong, and so on. Never heard that before. He's writing about some of my relationships, Holy Toledo, and blame and criticize and make wrong, and so on. This in turn now becomes his challenge to defend himself against her pain body attack, which he sees as totally unwarranted. He will become even more deeply entrenched in his mental position as he justifies and defends himself or counterattacks. Eventually, this may activate his own pain body. When both partners have thus been taken over, a level of deep unconsciousness has been reached, of emotional violence, of savage attack and counterattack. It will not subside until both pain bodies have replenished themselves and then entered the dormant stage until the next time. Wow. This is only one of an endless number of possible scenarios. Many volumes have been written, and many more could be written about the way in which the unconsciousness is brought out in the male-female relationships. But as I said earlier, once you understand the root of the dysfunction, you do not need to explore its countless manifestations. Let's briefly look again at the scenario I've just described. Every challenge that it contains is actually a disguised opportunity for salvation. At every stage of the unfolding dysfunctional process, freedom from unconsciousness is possible. For example, the woman's hostility could become a signal for the man to come out of his mind-identified state, awaken into the now, and become present. Instead of becoming even more identified with his mind, even more unconscious, instead of being the pain body, the woman could be the knowing that watches the emotional pain in herself, thus accesses the power of the now, and initiating the transmutation of the pain. This would remove the compulsive and automatic outward projection of it. She could then express her feelings to her partner. There is no guarantee, of course, that he will listen, but it gives him a good chance to become present, and certainly breaks the insane cycle of the involuntary acting out of the old mind patterns. Wow, eh? If the woman misses the opportunity, the man could watch his own mental emotional reaction to her pain, his own defensiveness. Rather than being the reaction, he could then watch his own pain body being triggered and thus bring consciousness into his emotions. In this way, a clear and still space of pure awareness could come into being. The knowing, the silent witness, the watcher. This awareness does not deny the pain. This awareness does not deny the pain, and yet it is beyond it. It allows the pain to be, and yet transmutes it at the same time. It accepts everything and transforms everything. A doer would have opened up, a door would have opened up to her through which she could easily join him in that space. If you're consistently, or at least predominantly present in your relationship, this will be the greatest challenge of your partner, for your partner. They will not be able to tolerate your presence for very long and stay unconscious. If they are ready, they will walk through the door that you opened for them and join you in this state. If they are not, they'll separate like oil and water. The light is too painful for someone who wants to remain in the darkness. Wow. So, fellas, I mean, there's quite a few men here. Do you relate to any of this? Maybe make a comment. And one of the things that I do see is that, you know, it's sometimes easier. Many of us that have decided not to be in relationships, or you know, whether consciously or unconsciously, and I think that, you know, we mustn't forget that being consciously in a relationship is such an opportunity, you know, to let go of the idea that we're going to get something, and to be there to see how we can serve and be there in service, but also be there and use the relationship as a tool for enlightenment and awakening. So, any thoughts, ideas? I'd love to hear them. Make a comment. It would be awesome. So I've gotten to boy, this chapter goes on and on and on. It is just you know, like holy Toledo, a long chapter. I think I'm done for today. We're on page 164, and but I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts on this, and you know, how many of you have consciousness as a high priority? You know, I mean, I know it's easy, and we've been conditioned so strongly to, you know, be successful, you know, and to be, you know, in the work environment, and you know, we've been conditioned to, you know, be good dads and all that stuff, and good parents, and yet, you know, all of that comes naturally if we focus on presence, on consciousness, on being connected to, you know, God as we understand Him, you know, being connected to the now. And that's why Eckhart's book has been such a huge success, and his career has been such a huge success. He's not a, you know, a man who's written books because he wanted to make a fortune. He's a man who wrote a book about the power of now, and the New Earth. Only a few books he's written, but because they were such aware and conscious books, they shone the light on a possibility. They, you know, his life has been amazing. I mean, financially, he's done very well as a result of those things. And so anyway, that's it. I just want to mention that we have a meditation class here. Now, meditation is not for everybody. I mean, actually it is, but obviously it's not, in a way, because, you know, who wants to meditate if we want to stay unconscious? If, you know, if our goals in life are not at all around consciousness, why would you want to meditate? You wouldn't, you know. And but if you have an idea that you'd like to, and there's an amazing power that comes from meditating in a group. There's also, you know, we all get to speak about our meditation and about our lives, and so we get to share our conscious journey. So it happens at Monday nights at 6:30. It'd be great to have you there. Also, I have on my page somewhere you can figure out how to donate if you'd like to Patreon. It looks like, you know, we're getting out of the retail business and moving more into the online world, and carrying this message as much as possible. And so it's a way to support that through Patreon. Do we put this link on the videos, James? The Patreon link? Yeah, it's on the videos. I don't know if it's on all of them, but it would be great if you could make a difference there. We're moving shortly, so, you know, we have some great stuff left in the store, but we don't want to take it with us. So pop in and have a look, or go online and look at Bali and Beyond, and order some cool stuff. I've got my meditation kits that are amazing, made from beautiful teak, recycled teak from Indonesia, and you know, that love it if you order one of those. That's it. Okay, love you guys, and thanks so much. What an opportunity. I'm so grateful to be able to read this to you guys, and to share it with you. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Love you, and we'll talk soon, I'm sure. Cheers.